Here I am at the Scottish Society of New Zealand in Christchurch. We've got a massive crowd. We've got a massive crowd out here at the front that's all for co-governance. And then there's a massive amount of people inside that is fully against co-governance. So this is what is happening with these globalists. It's splitting up the nation like this. This is the reason why co-governance isn't even any good. This is apartheid basically being disguised in the political system. But I'll turn this around and we'll see the people that are hiding out there. You know what apartheid has done to the South Africans? How's it going there, Lincoln?
Yeah, good. So we've got a few of our guys just getting facial recognition and things like that.
Oh, okay. That's not something new.
And then just in case there's fights and stuff, we want to have who they are so we can wind back with footage and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
When you I'll speak to you later. So there's the cops are out here tonight as well. We've got a big security team as well looking after the place. And the security guys are there as well. And then there's a massive crowd out here that's fully for the co-governance. This is how the society's been brainwashed. How you going, bro?
Oh, Jeremy.
Good to see you. So we've got a good security team here tonight.
Yeah.
And we've got all the people that like to wear masks are standing outside, and all the people that don't like masks are inside. Basically. Look at them all. Inside it's standing room only. Co-governance has got nothing to do with the Treaty of Waitangi. This is all creating an apartheid. They're just using it as an excuse.
I'm talking to Ngāti Wikitoria. Ngāti Wikitoria. We are a tribe in this country. Hey, mate. I'm Ngāti Wikitoria, brother. Whatever, mate. I'm easy to find. Easy to find. So go do it. Go find me.
You're not helping, sir. You're not just calm things down.
You do your job.
We don't want to make. You're trying to exacerbate things. I'm trying to keep the peace. You're not trying to bring it up. I'm trying to keep the peace. Please help us.
Now you're blocking the footpath. Yeah, that's it.
What the government has done, and I can easily see it clearly now, is they have used this Treaty of Waitangi and the Māori tribes as a way of trying to get this co-governance in where it's going to do no good at all. We've got New Zealand's Freedom Party is fully against this co-governance as well, because this is just a disguised form of apartheid. And you can see what happened to that sort of thing in South Africa. We need to be working together as one people, not being split up. I'm going to go back in there, standing room only in here now.
Oh, okay, mate. How are you? Very good. Awesome. Well,
Omaree last night, it was similar to this, not quite as big as this. And we had a great, fantastic night. Now, I've got any of those slips here, I'll just hold one up. I'd like to keep in contact with you because we now have thousands of people involved in this movement. And so if you've got this little form here, and our guys should have a whole lot of them. Paul's got them in the back. Can you get them for us? So everybody needs one of these little forms, and we'd love you to fill it out, please, because then we can keep in contact with you. Because what's happening is this has become a bit of a sort of like a military exercise, not using guns or bullets or anything like that, but in terms of organisation, there's now a huge group of people involved in this, and I need to keep in contact with everybody. We need to stay connected, because you know, if the commanding officer of an army loses connection with his troops, then the thing's stuffed, right? Right, you lose the war. So I've got to keep it connected with everybody. Now, we might turn that big guy off because he's just so noisy. Whoever has the capability of turning that off. I don't know how these guys, Paul, somebody, turn that off. All right. So if somebody could get somebody from the kitchen to say, can we turn the heater off? Because we're all warm enough now? We're all feeling good? Okay. And what's the sound like at the back? Does everybody hear me fine? Okay, good. Can you see that fine?
Yeah.
Okay, nobody needs to go to Specsavers. All right. We're going to have a great night. Now, you can make it fun. I've got to set some rules for tonight. We do need that off. So somebody go and find somebody who can turn the heater off. And it's a guy called Paul. He's in the kitchen. So just go and get Paul and say, Paul knows how to turn it off. Okay. We do have some rules. This is my meeting. And we paid for this. And so while I'm talking, nobody else talks. Is that fair enough? That's just manners. That's just manners. And there was a Q&A time at the end. So I'd ask you to be respectful and to wait for the Q&A time for your questions. Is that fair enough? Yes. Okay, so the police are here. They're just outside. And we'll warn you if somebody starts shouting things out and what have you, starts misbehaving, we'll just get the police in and they will take you out. So that's how the arrangement is tonight. So we hope you don't have any of that, because we haven't had that. In fact, we had a Maori lady in my Ashburton meeting, and she was right down the back. She's about 55 years old, 60. She was a kuia, and she got up at the end of the meeting. She said, "You know what? I came into this meeting to really kick up a big fuss." And she said, everything that Julian said tonight, I agreed with. And she said, this is on video, it's on my website. Haven't you seen it? Have you seen the lady? She said, I would agree with him, everything he said, and we Maori have got to get our act together, something like that. And then she said, we're all one people. We're all one people. Is that true? We're all one people? Come on. I know this is going to be a great night. Because if you start clapping like that, then you're already warmed up, you're revved up, and that's what we need, because we can have a fun night or a boring night. And I'd much rather have a fun night that's relaxed and everybody's getting on and we're all happy. Okay, so let's make a start. If you want to get my emails and my blog each day, then I'd like you to take that number down and you just give us your name and your email, and that goes through to somebody who captures all that for us, and then you get onto my blog. This is Mr. Hipkins. As you know, Chippy. Sorry about that, everybody. And this is Mr. Luxon. And so...
The screen is a bit hard to see, but we know what's going on.
Because this could be a lot of fun. I got a sense that this is a bit of a wild crowd, because there's something in the air in ChCh, you know what I mean? Why is it like this in ChCh and nobody else? They take a bit of time to warm up. You guys come in revved up and warmed up, and it's all go. Okay, so Mr. Luxon, both of them didn't get a very good reception tonight from ChCh. Okay. All right, so they both exhorted New Zealanders to discuss co-governance. And so tonight, give yourselves a clap for being good, obedient little citizens to your Prime Minister and your Leader of the Opposition. Right. So that was a bit of a pathetic clap, but anyway. So here is, hopefully the sound is good enough on this. I might have to tune it up. But here's Mr. Hipkins talking about co-governance.
There's no seats. You might just sit on
misinterpreting it to raise fear. Does the government have some responsibility for that? Did I explain it properly? And what will you do to address that?
Look, as I said yesterday, co-governance can mean different things in different situations. We should have a mature discussion about it, not one that's informed by bumper sticker slogans. We should make sure that we're informing New Zealanders what we're doing and why we're doing it. As I indicated yesterday, the last national government entered a multitude of co-governance arrangements during their time in office. In fact, some of the co-governance, or some of the examples put forward by the National Party yesterday of initiatives that they support have elements of co-governance within them. So if we think about, Kura Kaupapa, for example, the Wānanga, even whānau ora. There's elements of co-governance within that.
Okay. Oops. See what I mean? This is why I need somebody here who can just put the levels up and down. Okay. My take on that is that Mr. Hipkins is not telling the truth. He's sort of blaming National, saying, you know what we've got with co-governance here is National's done this and National's done that, and he says, means different things to different peoples. He's trying to muddy the waters, and he's not telling the truth. Because I can tell you that when Miss Ardern came to power, that co-governance, the pedal was put to the metal. She accelerated everything when it came to co-governance, and co-governance existed before the Labour Party came in with her, but she accelerated it exponentially. And if you want to know what co-governance is all about, how many of you have read my book? Okay. This is what co-governance is about. It's about the elite Maori takeover of New Zealand. That's what it's really about. Now, if he was to get up and say, co-governance is about the elite Maori takeover of New Zealand, and elite Maori have planned to, through Hei Purpura and Maitiki Mai, Aotearoa, have said openly that they want to get complete control of New Zealand by 2040. Now, if he said that and came right out with it and said it, then they would lose the election by a landslide. There will be civil unrest. So he's hiding it. So let's see if Mr. Luxon does any better.
Co-governance has been messily handled and explained by this government because they haven't been upfront on such a big constitutional issue. They haven't taken people with them, and as a consequence, become increasingly divisive across New Zealand.
Do you mean by the conversation has been immature around co-governance?
Well, it has been. It's been immature and divisive because essentially the Prime Minister hasn't come forward, spent her huge political capital making the case to the New Zealand people and taking them with her on it, and then having a decent debate and discussion about it. We've been calling for a decent discussion about it. Okay,
down we go. Just get that down again. Thank you very much. Give her a clap for doing it. You've got this good stuff. Okay, now down a little bit more, I think too, because that could be a little bit too loud. I've got a real problem with Mr. Luxon with what he just said there, because he was sort of saying that co-governance is okay, it just hasn't been explained properly. If you've got cancer, doesn't matter how well you explain it, it's wrong, it's bad. True? You can't explain co-governance and make it good through an explanation. It is fundamentally wrong. And so explaining it's not going to help. And unfortunately, Mr. Luxon, he doesn't come out and tell us what he's going to do with co-governance. He said he's not for co-governance with social services like hospitals, police and so on, but he is for natural resources. That's rivers and lakes and mountains and oceans. So he has a limited co-governance perspective, and I have a real problem with what he says. So we're putting pressure on him to say you must expunge co-governance from all legislation in New Zealand. It's got to go. It's a cancer. New Zealand must go into co-governance remission. Okay, that's your first. Okay, I'll tell you. No, hang on a minute. No, wait a minute. She said something about the treaty. She said, we're all for the treaty. I'm for the treaty. I'd like her to stay if she would just be quiet. Just be okay. She can stay. I actually want people to stay because in the second half of this, first half we're going to have a break. And I'm going to get people, we're going to have a cup of tea and a sausage roll and, normal stuff. And in the second half, we're going to go through the Treaty of Waitangi. So I want people to stay with this, because the first half I have to tell you what's going on in the country, which is like the frame around the picture. The picture is the treaty, but I've got to put the frame around it. It doesn't look so good when you don't have a picture without a frame. So just stay with the first hour, then we'll have a break, and then we're going into the treaty, which is the amazing. Nobby Clark, Mayor of Invercargill, said to me when he was leaving, and in writing later, the explanation of the treaty you're going to get tonight is the best that he heard in 60 years. So don't go home after the sausage rolls. Stick around. Okay, darling, you come right up here, because it's really loud. You can come sit in my seat up here. Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, let's give her a clap for humour. Okay, so I'm going to use this word tonight. I've been criticised for using this word. It's the word war, obviously. And I thought a lot about people's criticisms. It's a little bit loud still, maybe? It's not too loud? Okay, well, I'll turn it up then. You guys decide. I've been criticised for using that word, and people said, oh, you shouldn't use that word because it's sort of politically not correct. And it's sort of like, it's not a good word, and it's, you know, it's a little bit abrasive, and, you know, da-da-da-da-da. And I went away and I thought about it, and sometimes I've changed that word for like conflict or coup or disagreement. It's not, but you know what? If a word fits the reality, you use the word. So I'm using the word war. Hang on, I haven't finished yet. Who's sparring up down there? Is that the same lady you couldn't hear? Okay, well maybe she can hear too well now. Alright. Just let me finish, please. Hang on a minute. Just hang on, please. Would you just give her a pill? I want to talk about this. Well, let me finish the slide, sweetheart. Please, or madam. I want to talk about this word. The Encyclopedia Britannica defines the word war like this. It says war, in the popular sense, is a conflict between political groups. Now, we have people out there tonight, who are against what I'm doing. They're for co-governance, where everyone just shout out the back. Now, you know what? They're entitled to have that opinion. I'm totally okay with that. In fact, I've been going around the country saying, if you want to hire this hall, this one, tomorrow night, and you have a meeting about what's good about co-governance, I'm all for that. I won't protest, because I think free speech is important. Give us a clap for that. Okay. So this is a conflict between political groups. Okay, we'll just maybe take the advice. You can just watch my slides, because you're missing the slides. You're missing all my slides, and I'm about to answer some of your problems that you're having here with this word. We're fighting for democracy. Democracy has been destroyed in New Zealand. In fact, it's under massive threat. In fact, it has already been destroyed in some respects. The Labour government talks about tweaking democracy. You can't do that. You either have democracy or you don't have democracy. You don't tweak it. As soon as it's lost, and to any degree, you've lost democracy. So what else are we fighting for? We're fighting in this war for one law for all. How many agree with that? Okay. We are fighting. I love Christchurch. This is a hot crowd. This is amazing. We are fighting for one person, one vote, and all votes of equal value. Give us a clap for that. And we're fighting for free speech because I hope this is all being video. Some of you guys need to come up here with your little sticks and have a look from this perspective, because it's pretty cool. Do you want to do that? You can come up here and sit on the stage like a mannequin. Up here.
I'll come up and have a look. Why not?
You can sit there. Okay, so there you go. All right. So this war we have discovered involves hostilities, and so we have people who are hostile. I've had people here who, on my tour, who have been very aggressive with me. Nobody's actually touched me, nobody's hurt me, nobody's damaged my car, and that's good. Because I'm actually doing what the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition told us to do. It involves duration. This has been going on since 1975. This is the definition that came out of the Encyclopedia Britannica. They say war has duration, so I'm just going through it point by point. It has duration. This started in 1975 with the Treaty of Waitangi Act, and then out of that was birthed the Waitangi Tribunal. And that's the biggest scam New Zealand's ever had politically. And it has magnitude, you see, because I'm saying this, that New Zealand is, if you want to make a metaphor, New Zealand is on a bus, all the New Zealanders are on the bus, it's being driven by elite iwi, and they're taking the entire country towards the edge of a cliff, and if it goes over, it's unsurvivable.
It's not iwi, it's the crown.
Don't you worry about it. This is my seminar. It's just, that word is very big for you, isn't it? I'm totally against all physical violence. You need to know that.
Emotional violence is
thank you. I'm totally against all physical violence. This is a political war. It's a war of words and ideas. Now, the only weapons I will ever use, and I've said this, is my brain, my mouth, and my pen. That's the only weapons I use. And you might say this, look, we started out, when I wrote this book in February this year, and we printed our first 5,000, we thought, man, you know, what if people are going to resonate with this book? Well, we've sold 350,000. And we're just about to put another 100,000 on the press. And so, if you don't think the pen is more powerful than the sword, then you account for that. How do you account for that? Because the written word, when it goes out, it's powerful. Is that true? Yes or no? Yes, it is. And so those are my weapons. I don't need a gun. I got something more powerful. It's this and this. We don't use this. We don't need it. In fact, the guy who first said that was this bloke here. The pen is mightier than the sword. That was the English author and playwright Edward Bulwer Lytton in 1839. This is my personal belief too. So let's clear that up right at the beginning. So who are the parties in this war? It's a war led by tribal representatives, private tribal companies, or elite Maori to take over New Zealand. Sometimes they're called treatyists. Elite Maori or treatyists are a distinct group. There may be. I'm going to have to take you out, my friend, if you keep going, because you're interrupting the flow of the meeting. She's trespassing out. If she can't be quiet, she's got to go. Well, you know what? I did give her a chance, didn't I? I gave her about 4 chances.
You gave her too many chances.
Oh, no. Okay. So, there are maybe, let's keep back, focus. There may be 1,000 in number. They do not represent all Maori or the vast majority of Kiwis. In fact, I have friends who are Maori and they don't want co-governance. I have somebody who was I was doing something in my car in Timaru, and somebody knocked on the window, and it was a Maori guy, about 50, 55 years old, and I wound my window down. He says, "I'm totally for you." And he was a guy, he said, "I'm sick of these elite iwi driving around in latest Range Rover with white leather seats and suits and beautiful shoes, and look at my kids. Look where I'm living." He says, "Where's all the money?" Tribal leaders are feathering their own nests to further their own self-interest. And if they are not stopped, New Zealand is headed to becoming the Zimbabwe of the South Pacific. Now, who else is helping Maori in this war? Because when you have a war, people take sides. Britain had, in the Second World War, had France and America and some other countries, and Germany, they had got some people on their side, Italy and Japan. And so when you have a war, you have people take sides. Well, who are the people in this war? Well, the media is well and truly on the side of elite Maori and of the takeover of New Zealand. You know what? When you watch this meeting tonight and you see how they report this, it's going to be different, totally different from the reality of what you experience. So take note of what goes on tonight. Let me just start off by giving you a little bit of background. The $55 million Public Interest Journalism Fund is where this all started. When COVID hit New Zealand, media outlets struggled, as did a lot of other businesses, but media outlets particularly, because they had ongoings like leases and power and wages and so on. And by the time COVID had finished, many were ready to hit the wall. So the government came up with this very evil, corrupt scheme to capture the media. And it was called the $55 million Public Interest Journalism Fund. And they said, we'll get you out of debt, we'll give you some, quote, free money, but you've got to start saying some things in your newspaper, your TV station, and your radio station. And what are you going to say? Well, this is what they said. This is called the ChCh Framework for News Media. These are the actual words from page 3 of the contract media outlets must sign if they want money. The Public Interest Journalism Fund, it says, must achieve these things. It must actively promote the principles of partnership. That is to say, you must say that Maori and the Crown are in partnership by the Treaty of Waitangi. Number 2, you must acknowledge Maori as a Te Tiriti partner. That's pretty much the same as 1. Then it says this, number 3, participation and active protection under Te Tiriti o Waitangi. In other words, if somebody rises up like Julian Batchelor and says no, the Crown is not in partnership with Maori through the treaty, then you've got to attack them. You've got to protect 1 and 2. Then it says this, the contract further states Maori have never ceded sovereignty to Britain or any other state. You must start saying this in your newspaper, your TV, your radio station. You must also start saying this, that this means our society has a foundation of institutional racism. You must also say we live in a society that perpetuates racism and inequities. Uh-oh. We've got a problem. My beautiful data projector just overheated. But it'll be okay. So, I think actually you guys can sit down now, if that's all right. That's great. You got what we needed. Thank you very much. That data projector will come back on in a second. So, what the media outlets did is a lot of them signed up to this. In fact, most of them signed up to this. And when they signed up, the New Zealand Herald took $1 million. And when they signed up to this, they had to start saying all these things. But there was a kicker. Because if there wasn't enough Maori content in their newspaper, their TV station, their radio station, that gift from the fund turned into a loan, and it could be recalled. Yeah. Now, Sean Plunkett's done a brilliant analysis of this on his show, and he has not signed up to that, nor has RCR Radio. And they won't, thank you very much, they won't sign up to it. They won't sign up to it because of the implications is that you are tied into the government and you have to pump out the government narrative. Now, I hope my data projector comes on very soon again. It sounds like it's cooled off, that's good. So we'll just give it another, turn it on again, and then we're away. See the red light there? Just don't look at it too closely, thank you. I think you're making it hotter with your smile. Okay, so hopefully that's going to come on. So we had this huge issue in New Zealand with the media being captured. Now, I have been a living example. It's coming on, thank goodness for that. Don't turn that heater on ever again. That's the culprit, plus your smile. So I've been the guy that's been on the other end of the $55 million public interest journalism fund. Because everywhere I go, Stuff, who's one of the biggest recipients of that fund, they are just like super glue on me. You know what? I've had the media ringing up my brother in London saying, you know, can you tell us a few stories about your brother? They're trying to get dirt on me. I've had the New Zealand Herald getting hold of mayors in New Zealand through the Official Information Office to get their hard drives to see if I've said anything racist in my communications with the mayors. Yeah, they're after me. And this is the fund that I told you about. Now, thank goodness that's going again. Would everybody please, I think it's because everybody's breathing in here and it's quite hot, so would you mind just stop that please for a while, just so my data projector can cool down. Alright, so here is the media. This is me. I've been on TV3 a few times with the news and TV1 and lots on Maori news. But this is the media, and I want you to watch how this media report is being manipulated to create an alarming impression. Now, this lady, when she starts reading the news, she says, and there are 42 more meetings like this coming up. And she goes, the meeting didn't get violent. But, and it's sort of like it nearly did. It nearly did. Now, I'll tell you the context of this. The lady who is the star of this show is somebody called Michaela Matenga. She's a Maori activist, and they make a big deal of her. And you'll see her in this show. The media are collaborating with her. So watch how this rolls. Now, this was at Orewa. We used to have public meetings where we could have everybody come in, and we'd have 200 people and 100 activists. And we were just sitting here just like this, and suddenly everybody was nice and quiet, and everybody was enjoying it, and that was rock along. And then 50 activists came in the back door. 50. And they started. They went up to everybody. That's not you, that's me. Okay, I'll just hold on to this. They went up to people inside the meeting. There was a guy coming up the front doing a haka, a full haka coming towards me, and then all the activists started working their way through the crowd, poking their cell phones in people's faces, like this. But the way the media portrayed that is that Julian's supporters were the aggressive ones. You watch, they say this, they say Julian's supporters didn't hold back when confronted with protesters. Because there's a sort of a shot, the footage they got came off the activist cell phones. And there's a footage of somebody swatting away a cell phone from somebody's face. And it sounded like, it looked like one of our guys had done that. So just watch this. It's honestly, it's so eye-opening.
Sorry, quick question. Which channel, which news outlet is this?
This is TV3.
Thanks.
The scenes in the North Auckland township of Orewa last night, with police having to separate protesters from attendees. The meeting didn't get violent, but comes at a time when the term co-governance is controversial, and there are still 42 more events planned. Tia McDougall reports.
Chanting no in the faces of Māori protesters. Supporters of the co-governance roadshow didn't hold back.
You know what she was doing? What she was doing, somebody poked a cell phone in her face. And she went, okay, if you're going to stick a cell phone in my face, I'm going to react to that. Wow! That's what she did. Fair enough. Don't you think? I'd give her a clap for that.
Confronted by those opposing the meeting. The roadshow is organised by this man, Julian Batchelor, who wants to spread his stance on co-governance.
It's illegal. It's based on interpretation.
However, he's often met with protesters. Yesterday's were from local iwi, Ngā Tū Manuhiri, and members of the Te Here Ngā Waka or Orewa Marae.
The protesters, they don't know what a racist is, and they don't know what the Treaty of Waitangi is.
From being there, I could tell that the attendees were fearful, and they were worried, and they were misinformed.
Okay. She says three things. She says the activists, she said the people who came to the meeting, that's you guys, they were fearful, they were worried. Well, why were they fearful and worried? Because of the activists. Do you feel fearful and worried tonight? No, you don't, because there's no threat tonight. But as soon as those activists came in, there was a massive threat. And they all felt fearful. And then she says, and they were misinformed. Well, do you know what? We had a secret camera. Not a secret camera, we were actually filming it. But she put herself right in front of our camera, and you know what she was doing the entire meeting? You know how we put books on everybody's seat as a gift for you? Well, she was going around ripping up all the books on the spare seats. That's what she was doing. And we had a pile of stuff like this. They were going through books, like $40 books on tables, just ripping them all up, throwing them in the air. And so, media never reported that. But she is presented as the little butterwood in your mouth, melt in your mouth, little activist. And so, this is what we are dealing with. So watch how this pans out.
I didn't expect it to be what it was. There was about 20 to 30 police officers there.
Authorities kept the peace, but insults were still exchanged.
He said, you're horrible, and then he followed up by saying you're horrible as well.
Okay. Now, two things were said to her. One is, you're horrible. And then you probably stink as well. Now, you know what that was about? That there was a guy who would try to stop her from ripping up all the books. And he intervened to say, don't do that, these are private books, they're not yours, stop doing that. And then he sat down and he said that. And then what happened was TV3 rang me and they said, what did you think of your supporters? And of course I hadn't seen that little bit of footage. And they stitched that together so it looked like I was endorsing the bad behaviour of the guy, you stink and you're horrible and you probably stink as well. So they stitched it all together. Right, watch this, come on.
How would you describe the behaviour of some of your supporters?
Oh, my supporters were fantastic. They were amazing. Sometimes they're a little bit conservative.
But supporters are not enough. Batchelor wants his message known at the Beehive.
I've had political parties talk to me. I'm not prepared to say who they are. I'm trying to get 100,000 people to the Auckland Domain just before the election to send that message to all the political parties.
A message to end co-governance. It's a touchy subject for some politicians, but not all.
We've been really clear that actually not just co-governance, but tino rangatiratanga for Māori and iwi and hapu is a benefit to all of us as a founding kaupapa of this country.
For now, there are 42 more events planned on the roadshow. Supporters, protesters and police likely preparing to be at all of them. Tim Dougal, News Hub.
Okay, so they finish off by saying, you know, there's the 42 events we're coming, actually it's now 100 and something, and so there's 42 events, and there's likely to be police and protesters, and what they want you to do is this, they say, you know, I want you to get the idea that don't come. This is dangerous. You could get knifed, it's going to be unpleasant. You know what I mean? You're here, give yourselves a clap for that, because you've resisted the media. Now, I'm just going to turn my sound off here, and we're going to go through to this girl and see what she was up to. Here we are. This is her. This is Michaela Matenga. And this is the actual meeting, what happened. This is the same meeting, but this was our camera. Here she is. Look. She's picking up books. And watch her. She goes, rip. 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 And this is the good guy. Remember him? He's the guy that comes along and says, stop doing that. He's the guy that said, you're horrible, and you probably stink as well, because she was doing all this. And there's a policeman standing right here. He's just out of shot. Watch him. He's doing nothing. He's just, well, his arms sort of folded, watching. So here she goes, look. This is all caught on camera. There's the cop. She goes back to the side. We used to have all our books in envelopes, and we'd have 2 or 3 books. You see that envelope she's got there? That's my book. Look. So, that's what happened. So this is what goes on that the media doesn't tell you about. And so when you watch the news now, this is what you're seeing. Lights, camera, fiction. That's what you see on the news. So I don't trust any of them anymore, ever. So my big question to all Maori is this: where are all the Maori who will defend the right to free speech? Where are they?
Right here.
Why are they not? Thank you. That was good. Actually, what percentage of Maori do you have in you? Because you look very Pākehā to me. Are you the 500th one? You're like Tiffany O'Regan. Sorry? Yeah, no, she was the one who was shouting out, so I said to her, you don't look very nice. Yeah. So why are they not stepping up to condemn the appalling behaviour of their own people? Well, sometimes they do. Sometimes we've had Maori, and I've got a guy who sort of follows me around the South Island. His name's Fred. He's a full-on Maori. And he actually says to all the activists who come to the door, want to get in and kick up a big fuss, he says, no mate, you can't come in here. And if you want to come in, you've got to be respectful, blah, 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 blah. And so he's one guy who's stepping up. And I noticed a lot of the Man Up people are here tonight too, who they want to... They've come here because they want, I presume, they also want to be part of this meeting, but they want to learn about the Treaty of Waitangi, which is what you do as well, I guess. Many Maori have come to me privately to say they're ashamed of the protesters and their shocking behaviour. Truth is, they say they're a blight on Maoridom. The Maori in New Zealand who will defend the right to free speech, and there are many, say there is no place in New Zealand for bullying, intimidation, harassment, and denying other people their right to free speech. There are many Maori who are against co-governance. The reason they don't go public with their views, they too will be intimidated and bullied by the shameful folks their own people. Welcome to co-governance and tikanga. Now listen, I'll tell you something. I've got a cleaner who cleans my beautiful property in the Bay of Islands, and she has been my cleaner for many years. I think it's about 7 years. Well, she came to me just about a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I can't clean for you anymore. And I said, what's that? And her name is, she's a lovely lady. Her name is Kath. She said, I can't do that because I'm being bullied by the community. And I said, don't worry about them. You're your own person. She said, no, it's really severe. I can't do it. I have to give up. And so this is what happens. Well, who else are we at war with? We're at war with history-ignorant politicians. And there are many of them. And it's not just the Labour Party, it's not just National, but because between 1975 and now, you've had politicians of all political colours who have really done New Zealand a great disservice. Bill Rowling passed the Treaty of Waitangi Act. He was a Labour Prime Minister. And then you have Geoffrey Palmer, who was a lawyer on the loose, who was just created all the principles of the treaty, and there are none. And then there was, and then you moved to Doug Graham, who was National, and then there was David Longy, who was Labour. And so then you have the worst of the devil incarnate, which was Chris Finlayson, right? He was National. And then you have John Key, who was National. So everybody's to blame. Now here is the pin-up boy. Are we ready? You ready for the good volume on this one? What's your name? Sandra. You're wonderful. What was that? She's whistling. Are you whistling at me? Okay then. All right. So watch this guy. This is Mr. McAnulty. How many know him? He's one of the worst. He's in the Labour cabinet, and he's their pin-up boy.
Well, is not strictly a one-person, one-vote model.
Yes, the proportion of mana whenua is higher than the proportion of the population.
Do you accept that that is not a strictly democratic model?
There are provisions in our laws around the treaty that aren't democratic. Co-governance of the Wanganui and Waikato River, for example. There are provisions that we have in this country that wouldn't stand up to a purely academic democratic framework. But that's not how we work in New Zealand. We recognise that this country was founded on a treaty that gives Māori particular rights and interest in certain things. And what we're proposing here, we believe, recognises that and complies with what previous court rulings have been. We've moved a long way as a country. It's a journey that we're still part way through. But recognising that the democratic system of this country was based on a promise, on a contract, I think that it's on the Crown to observe those obligations and commitments that it made.
Okay, now he sounds quite confident. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but in actual fact, he's a shocking liar, and he's not telling the truth about the treaty. Because watch this, I analysed what he said. In 1 minute 9 seconds, McAnulty breaches the treaty in 6 ways. How come politicians can breach the treaty and there's no repercussions? You know why they're not being pulled up? Because of the $55 million public interest journalism fund. That's muzzled the media in New Zealand. He says this, the proportion of mana whenua on councils is higher than the general population. That's unquote. He's talking about councils. Just because this is so does not make it right. No. The treaty guarantees all New Zealanders equality. If people want to be a city councillor, they've got to be voted on. Period. That's it. Is that true, yes or no? True. Yes, it is. That's it. Breach number 2, he says there are provisions in our laws that are not democratic. Oh, really? He's sort of saying, like, you know, the Labour Party's been so normalised breaking democracy up that it's now normal. So just because undemocratic laws, bad laws exist, does not make them right. Bad law must be repealed to restore democracy. True? To restore equality. Is that true? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay. Number 3, our country, he said, was founded on a treaty which gives Maori particular rights and interests in certain things. No, absolutely wrong. Maori ceded sovereignty in the treaty and became British citizens. The treaty guarantees equal rights for all. You know what? Every time a racial group, no matter who they are in New Zealand, gets a special handout, a special favour, like Maori were given $845 million in the budget, why weren't the Chinese given that? Why weren't the Indians given that? Why weren't the Thai people given that?
Because this is not their country.
You know what? It is their country. It's their country.
Explain it to me.
It's their country. They live here. They've got citizenship. Anybody who lives here, who's one of the people who live here, they came here as settlers, and we're all equal. We are New Zealanders. We don't have 2 classes of people here. This is not a class society. We're all the same. Right? Just wait for
Chinese, Asian, and Germans all have their own country.
Mate, the world belongs to everybody. There you go.
And this country...
We'll have to take you out. If you can't be quiet, we'll have to take you out. Okay.
The treaty belongs to everyone in this room. room. I challenge you to go home and learn about it. Don't listen to this fella. Read it for yourself.
Go and do a hugger outside.
Okay, you need to take him out, please. Ask him to leave. Thank you, Brian. You know what's sad about all this? He's going to miss the treaty session now. He's going to miss the treaty session. Now I want you to remember what he said. Because he's going to miss the treaty and what you really want to know about the treaty. Because he wasn't self-disciplined to keep quiet and obey the rules. Here's another one. No group is to have... you didn't come and... I'm not even going to answer this because, you know what? This is just a distraction from what we're talking about. No group is to have special rights under the treaty. No group. Because we are all equal.
Correct. Yes.
Is that true, yes or no?
We're all
equal. Okay. The next breach that he makes is this. The next breach he makes is this. There are provisions, Mr. McAnulty says, there are provisions which we have in this country which would not stand up to a strictly academic democratic framework. That is not how we work in this country. Oh really, Mr. McAnulty? That's not how Labour works. Labour thinks it's quite okay to be undemocratic. Look at this. Wrong. The British established democratic government in New Zealand via the treaty. Any talk of any other form of government is a breach of the treaty. The next breach, he says, what we're doing complies with what previous court rulings have been. Do you know what the Labour government did? They introduced, and the national government, they introduced judges, activist judges, into the Treaty of Waitangi scene to try and manipulate the treaty so that Maori would get more stuff. Now, you don't need a judge to tell you what the treaty says. How many of you read the treaty? It's so simple. A 10-year-old kid can understand it. It's only 3 paragraphs. It fills half an A4 page.
There are 2 versions.
Just wait until I get to the end. Wrong. The treaty speaks for itself. The so-called court rulings by activist judges like Robin Cook do not and should not override the plain meaning of the treaty. Cook said the treaty was akin to a partnership. He did not say it was a partnership, and nor was it a partnership. But activists got hold of that and said, see, the judge said it's a partnership. They took a leap, even on what he said. The next breach, he says, the democratic system of our country was based on a promise, that's the treaty, on a contract, that's the treaty, and I think that it's on the Crown, he says, to observe these obligations and commitments that it made, unquote. Now, that sounds like he's taking the high moral ground, and most of us would say, if you make a commitment, you keep it, right? That's good. But the so-called promises McAnulty details are simply not in the treaty. He's promising stuff to New Zealanders which are just not there, to Maori. It's obvious he does not know what it promises, what the treaty promises. What the treaty does promise is this. It promises one law for all. It promises equality before the law for all 160 cultures living here. The establishment of a strictly democratic government. The treaty promises racial harmony. Hobson said, hei iwi tahi taka, which is we are now one people. We're not 2 people. We're not Maori and the rest. We're all New Zealanders. It promises no special rights, privileges, handouts. This is the treaty. The treaty promises no special handouts, rights, privileges to any racial group. When this happens, racism and apartheid are being displayed for all to see. Conclusion, McAnulty is breathtakingly ignorant with respect to the treaty. He is spreading racism and apartheid. Well, why aren't the media all over this? I told you, $55 million fund. Well, who else are we? So we have politicians who are completely unaccountable saying ridiculous things about the treaty and spreading misinformation. Well, we're at war also with Maori activists, either activist journalists or simply activists. Now, every week I have an email from an activist who says to me, you've got to read this. And they say things like this. Maori never ceded sovereignty. Julian, you've got to read this. Maori never ceded sovereignty. Maori had their own government here in 1840 and they were doing really well, and the British came along and stuffed it up. And it's just rubbish. And so these guys, these activists, and here's the worst one, he belongs to the Aotea Liberation League, and he is radicalising young Maori and leading them horribly astray. Watch what he says. Come on. Come on.
Is racism.
If you read Article 3 of the treaty in Te Ao Māori, Ngā tikanga reo te kikitahi,
She then mistranslates.
it says that everyone has equal rights and duties under the law.
Relying on the public not speaking Te Reo Māori, treaty denialists often pretend that Article 3 erases Māori rights. The document itself is very clear. Article 1. Māori give the Crown the right to govern British settlers. At this time, there were 80,000 self-governing Māori and 2,000 settlers with no government. Article 2 affirms that Māori retain their sovereignty and Māori agree to only sell land to the Crown. In return, the Crown agrees in Article 3 to give Māori the same rights as British subjects. Māori and the British both govern themselves under the protection of the Queen. Te Tiriti o Waitangi grants neither side authority to rule the other. Lying about that is racist because it seeks to maintain colonial control at the expense of our rights to self-determination.
Okay, now when you see that, he sounds confident. By the way, he's using an auto cue. He sounds confident, he's a good-looking guy, and so on. But he's actually one of the biggest liars on the planet. And I want to show you what those lies were, just word for word, what he said, and correct what he says. In 1 minute, 19 seconds, he tells 10 lies and 2 truths, and here they are. His accusation is that non-Maori say that Article 3, that's, I'm a non-Maori, and some of you are here, his accusation is that non-Maori say that Article 3 of the treaty erases Maori rights. That's absolutely wrong. No one has ever said this. The opposite is true. It gives Maori, the treaty, Article 3, gives Maori the same rights as everyone else. Via the treaty, Maori became British citizens, and thus they received rights. Is that true, yes or no? Yes. That's true. Number 2, he implies that if you don't speak Maori, you can't understand the treaty. That's absolutely piffle, right? Because, do you know what? Look, the treaty in Maori, which I totally support, and I want to get back to the treaty in Maori, the treaty in Maori was made from a final English draft. It's called the Littlewood Draft. Now, that Littlewood Draft is a mirror image of the treaty in Maori. And if you want to know what the treaty in Maori says, I've put it in here. I've put the Littlewood Draft in here, page 7 of my book. And it's in English. And if you look at that and you read it, it is an exact mirror image of the treaty in Maori. You don't need to speak Maori. There's only 2 differences. Was the date, because the final English draft was formulated on the 4th February, and the Maori treaty was signed on the 6th. So that's one difference. And the only other difference is that in Article 3 of Maori version, Te Tiriti, Hobson and Williams stuck in the word Maori into Article 3 in the last minute. And I'll tell you why that happened in a minute when we get onto the treaty. Not true again. Just read the English Littlewood Draft. Now, the next slide. Maori gave the Crown the right to govern British settlers. No. Maori gave the Crown. We're talking about the Queen, the greatest ruler in the world. By 1900, Britain had 1/5 of the world's countries under its power. They just defeated Napoleon in the Napoleonic Wars. This was a superpower, way beyond America as a superpower today. And you're talking about Maori pushing that lady around, saying who she can govern and who she can't. Come on. No, that's wrong. Maori ceded sovereignty. Next slide. Line number 4. There were 80,000 self-governing Maori in New Zealand in 1840. No. Maori was self-annihilating. Cannibalism. This is just history. Cannibalism, slavery, and infanticide were rife. There was no unifying Maori government, only tribes at war. This is the truth. In fact, Wakanene, one of the most intelligent of all the Maori chiefs, he had a moment, a eureka moment, because between 1800 and 1840, the Maori population went down from 150,000 to 75,000. And it wasn't Maori being killed by Europeans, it was Maori killing Maori. This is called the Musket Wars. They halved. And Wakanene had a eureka moment, like an alcoholic, I guess, has. I've never been one, so I wouldn't know, but that's how I read about it. He had a moment where he went like this. You know what? If Maori don't stop war, there's going to be no Maori left. They were killing each other. They were self-annihilating. And he went to the British and said, you've got to help us, because we're out of control with war. We can't stop it like an alcoholic can't stop drinking. And they went to the British. This is a huge point. It was the Maori who wanted the treaty and wanted British protection from themselves. It was Maori who came to the British wanting a treaty to save them from themselves and the French. Now you remember the French. You remember the French. 1772, De Thierry came here with 2 boats and he anchored in a bay that was tapu. He went ashore with 25 men. Maori captured him, so 26 in the boat, 25 of his men, plus the Thierry, and they killed and ate the whole lot. Hang on. The other boat got back to the ships, and they set up a military hospital on Motutua Island, which is just off where I live in Rafiti. And one night, a flotilla of walkers came across from the mainland, full moon, and they attacked that hospital. But the French were ready. It was a military hospital. And they killed, some say, 250 Maori in 20 minutes. Maori had never seen a gun. It was a fire stick. And the Maori that escaped went back to the mainland with the tails between their legs. And they told about the French, and they had a dreadful fear of the French spread through Maori. So they went to the British and said, you've got to save us from the tribe of Maori, because they could come back. It was Dufresne, not De Thierry. Dufresne. Maori gave the Crown the right to govern British settlers. This is another lie, he says. No, they did not. Maori ceded sovereignty. The next lie, he says, is Maori retained their sovereignty. No, that's a lie. No. Maori ceded sovereignty. He makes a true statement. He says, Article 2, Maori agreed to only sell land to the Crown. That's correct. And he makes another true statement. The treaty agreed to give Maori the same rights as British subjects. That's true. Line number 7, he goes straight back into lies. Maori and the British both govern themselves. No. Maori agreed to be solely governed by the British. The treaty is so clear about this. There can only be one form of government in New Zealand, and that is the democratically elected government. Next lie, the treaty gives neither side the authority to rule over the other. No. Through cession, or sovereignty, Maori gave the British the right to rule over Maori. Lie number 9, lying about the treaty is racist. Well, he's a liar, but he's a racist thing. In other words, if you say Maori ceded sovereignty in the treaty, you're a liar and a racist, and you're supporting colonial control. No, speaking the truth about the treaty does not make us racist. Maori ceded sovereignty in the treaty. Conclusion, this activist is leading Maori away from truth and into lies and misinformation. As such, he is doing great damage inside Maoridom. Then he goes on to say this, if you say Maori didn't cede sovereignty, you are undermining the rights of Maori to self-determination. Now there's a big thing they've made of this, self-determination. It's a little thing that's coming up more and more. No, currently, Maori have the same rights as everyone else to self-determination. In fact, they have more rights. If you want to get into med school, do you have more rights? Engineering school? Nursing, teaching, everything. Maori are given special scholarships and all sorts of things. By self-determination, we mean that each individual person, regardless of race in New Zealand, has the right to choose a path in life and go for it. Is that true, yes or no? Yes. That is true, right? So, By self-determination, we do not mean Maori setting up their own country and government within New Zealand. For this they have no right. This is tribal rebellion. It's treason, and therefore a glaring breach of the treaty. And it must be stopped. Remember in the 1860s, hang on, wait a minute. Remember in the 1860s, the Kingi Taonga movement rose up in New Zealand? And it was a group of Maori said, we're going to kick off the treaty, we're going to set up our own government, just like it's happening today, exactly the same. And the government at the time said, this is treason, and we're going to move in with troops, and we're going to put down this rebellion, this treason, because you can't have treason in a democratic country. And this is what they did. And they came in with troops and they warned the Maori several times. They said, if you don't stop this, we're going to take land off you, confiscate land, in payment for the cost of putting down the rebellion. And that's what happened. It was treason. But how come the government, how come the media is not all over this? Because what's happening today in New Zealand is treason. Maori are taking over the country. But they've sewn up the media. Government departments, well, I need to start my own newspaper shortly. Government departments are now run by activists. That's another huge big problem. Let me tell you my own history. Just turn this down a little bit. There are government departments which are run by activists, and I'll tell you my story. I bought a beautiful piece of land in the Bay of Islands in 2008. It was in 3 lots. It's got a beach on both sides. One of those beaches is called Oakey Bay. It's arguably the most beautiful beach in New Zealand. It's in 3 lots. So I thought, I had a little mortgage. I'll sell 1 lot, and I will be able to get rid of my mortgage. So I rang up Bailey's and said, just sell this bit of land for me. And they came and they put up a sign. Within 1 hour of that sign going up, it was chopped down with an axe. Now I bought in a 99% Maori community, the most staunch Maori community in New Zealand. Now if I was a racist, would I buy in a community like that? Come on. Because I had an impression of Maori in 2008 that Maori were cool. I went to school with Maori, we were colourblind. We played sport together, we were in classes together, I didn't think of somebody as a Maori or not a Maori. How many of you are like that? Okay. So I bought in this little community, and as soon as the sign was chopped down with an axe, signs have started appearing all over my land saying this is Maori land. And then videos appeared on the internet saying, we're going to fight this guy, Julian Batchelor, we're going to get this land off him, he's a white racist, everything. And I went, whoa. And then the police rang up and said, you've got to call off that auction because we got an email from Maori in Rafferty saying, that auction goes ahead, we're going to come and smash up the auction rooms. So I went, holy moly. Well, between 2008 and 2015, a group of guys and some others, we restored a beautiful 140-year-old villa, which was right on the beach. It was cowering, and it was lovely. And we thought in 2015, by the way, between 2008 and 2015, we had videos going up on YouTube all the time saying how bad we were, and there was people in the community who wanted to engender hate towards us. Regularly. But we just tried to operate in an opposite kind of spirit. We gave things and gave them away, and nobody ever said thank you. 2015, we said, let's rent the house out because we create some funds. Christmas holiday, it's prime time. So that's what we did. 3 South African families rented that. They came all the way from South Africa for their dream holiday. At 2 a.m, New Year's Eve 2015, my cell phone goes off, and I picked it up. I usually turn it off, I don't know why it was on. And there's the sound of smashing glass, screaming, shouting. It's just chaos. And I said, what's going on? And through the noise, she said, we're having a home invasion. Kids are wet in their beds. There's 20 Maori doing a haka on the front lawn. They're smashing windows. They're rattling on the doors trying to get inside. Boulders have been thrown at the house. It was a terror attack. So I said, I'm coming up straight away.
I put my gear on, got in the car, rang the police on the way. Police didn't arrive till 9 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I got there and I tried to comfort these guys, and I thought, it was chaos. It was just like a bomb had gone off at my house. All the glass everywhere. They were huddling on the front, deck like this, the South Africans, like, welcome to New Zealand. So I went to the community and I said, why'd you do that? And they said, your land is stolen from us. And I said, well, why don't you come and see me? Why'd you do that? There's women and kids in there. What kind of people are you? You should have seen me, not them. So I wrote, I'm a journalist, and I went and researched I wrote a 200-page book on the history of that land. In 1937, it was sold by a Maori family to a school teacher who'd been teaching in the community. His name was Thomas Thompson. He'd been there for 17 years. The whole community went to the Maori Land Court in Russell to support the sale because they loved him. He was called the father of the community. He was the schoolmaster, the vet, the counsellor, the sports master, the postmaster. He was everything. And the whole community was the opposite of what Maori in 2015 were telling me. It was stolen. That wasn't stolen. So I put that on the internet, and I went into the community, and Maori could read it. It was online like a flip book. They could read it, and they all did. And I said, you owe me 10 grand. You caused 10 grand's worth of damage, and I want you to go and apologise to the South Africans. Nothing happened. Then it was dead silence. And then 2018, the Maori woman, so we had to just forgive it and move on, don't want to hold anything. And then in 2018, another Maori woman comes up the driveway. We don't see them between these incidents. Nobody talks to you. You wave at them, you're invisible, they don't wave back. And a Maori lady comes up the driveway and she says, I want my land back. She got closer and closer to me, and then she started hissing in my right in my face. And she got hold of my upper arms, and I had a 1080 HD camera with perfect sound behind me, and I thought, you know what, if I give her the bash, I'm going to be the villain. So I just held on to her like this, and her fingernails were going down here, and then blood all started to come down here. Anyway, eventually I said to her, on a count to 3, if you don't let go, I'm going to toss you down the driveway, which I did. And then I gave that footage to the police. We went to court in ChCh, and the police charged her with assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. The footage was played in the court, and the gallery, just like this, were all gasping, watching the footage. And the judge goes, I'm just going to let you off. And the gallery just got up and walked out. They were disgusted. The reason was that judges were being instructed by the Labour government to bring the Maori crime stats down and to let Maori off crime. Now what happened was that Maori lady went back to my community and she went, hey, see, I got let off. You can smash Julian over, no consequences. I had to forgive that. And then 2022, last year, because the New Zealand Herald wrote a story on me, a double page, what triggered Julian Batchelor, like I'm a psycho. Don't look at me like that. And 2022, this another Maori lady comes up the driveway. We never see them apart from these incidents. And she said, can I come and see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow? I said, that's fine. I said, what do you want to talk about? She said, I'll tell you then. So 10 o'clock rolled on, and she's about 55, very Maori, and I had my cell phone on recording everything. I just put it on the table and said, hi, nice to see you, I had a cup of tea, a few biscuits. And then she said, well, we had some small talk, and then she said, let me cut to the chase. She said, I've come here on behalf of the whole community to tell you that if you don't give us your land, we're going to burn your house down. So I went, oh really? Because I knew it was all being recorded, and I thought, okay, just stay calm. Why would I give you my land? Because I worked all my life for that. She goes, because we want it. And I say, come on, this is not 1830 where you just go on a raid and get stuff for free. You've got to buy it. This is 2022. Anyway, we had a long discussion. Went off to the police. The cops came back to me a few weeks later and they said, we can't charge you. I said, why not? I said, because she didn't say, I am going to burn it down. She said, we are. We've got to nail with just one person. So she got off. Then the final thing that got me was last year, middle of the year, I got a letter from Heritage New Zealand. This is talking about government departments that we're at war with. And the letter basically went like this. Dear Mr. Batchelor, your land has been reclassified as Wahi Tapu, sacred Maori land. I said, no way are you going to do that to me. And I said, what's your justification? They said, a body was dragged across your land in 1775, something like that. And so that land is sacred to Maori, and you pay the rates, we've got control. Now Maori at the moment walk through my land to get to their urupā. I don't charge them, I pay the rates, they never say thank you. So then I entered into correspondence with Heritage New Zealand, and some minion inside Heritage New Zealand sent me an email with, he should have been more careful because there was correspondence between him and the locals at the bottom of the email. And it said something like this, hey bro, we got the land, high five. Should we come up for a feed? Because it's normal to come up from Wellington to celebrate sort of a victory. Now at that point, I had a pencil in my hand. When I read that, I had a pencil in my hand, I just snapped it, and I said, that's it, I'm mobilising. I'm going to tell New Zealand about this. I chucked the pencil in the air, I said, they pushed me too far. And I've come to warn you today about tribal rule. I've had 14 years of hell on earth with tribal rule. They tried to break me to get the land. So I set up a website. I said I'm going to write a book. I was on my own. I didn't know what I was going to do. Just before I pressed play on that website, make it live, I thought this could get messy. They know where I live, they know my name, it's going to be all over the website. And then I thought, the good book says this, no man builds a tower unless he counts the cost. So I thought, what's this going to cost me? And I thought, they could burn my house down. How would I feel about that? I'd be upset. Okay. But I can sacrifice that. Tick. Then I thought, the only other thing they can get is me. They could kill me. And I went, whoa, it's a bit more serious. So what I did is I just sat there on my desk thinking about this. And into my mind, because I'm a believer, into my mind came a Bible verse that said this, don't fear him who can kill the body. Fear him who can kill both body and soul in hell. And I thought that was a direct word from him. I pressed play, and this fear just left me. So I'm telling you tonight, by the way, it's helpful to know that one of the guys I respect in that Maori community read the only guy actually in the entire community that I respect, he's about 60 years old. He read my book, he came up the driveway, and he was crying. And I thought, oh no, he's upset with the book, but he wasn't. He said, I'm ashamed of being a Maori. That was the words he used. He said, this should never have happened to you. And he said, can I point something out through his tears? And I said, yep. There's a picture in that book of Maori protesting outside my property with dogs and flags and going like this. And he said, that was taken in 2015, that photo, and I just stuck it in there. And he said, you know what? Half the people in that photo are now dead, and the other half so sick they can't get out of bed. He said, your place is tapu. And I said, spread that around. That's the truth. It's maybe why I haven't been touched on this tour by anybody. Anyway, let's move on, because we're going to have a break any minute now, in a few minutes, just so we're nearly there. Look, so you need to know that activism in education system, the brainwashing of young people at kindergarten right up to university, little tiny kids being taught te reo and forced, and te reo maths. We had a 40-year-old school teacher in in Waimate who came to my meeting. He was very angry, and he said that we've got te reo in maths, te reo in science, te reo in everything, and they come home with te reo. Do you know what this is about? My personal opinion, this is grooming. They're grooming the next little generation of voters ready for tribal rule, because they don't want opposition. This is not about the preservation of the Maori language. This is about grooming. This is about propaganda. This is about capturing a generation so that they won't oppose the tribal rule when it really starts to roll. European lawyers and consultants, they're going to have to answer for some things. They've sold their soul in our country for filthy lucre. Do you know how much Three Waters has cost to get across the line? They're estimating between $2 and $3 billion. Grant Robertson is just giving out money like this. He's just giving out money because Willie Jackson raised his fist in the air and said, if we get the water, we get the country. How many heard that? Remember that? Okay? And he's giving out the money like there's no tomorrow to get that across the line. And all these consultants are getting very rich out of it. Activism in local councils. Oh my goodness. You should hear Nobby Clark, what he says. I'm just wondering which story to tell you. Nobby Clark was given $5.7 million by the government for whatever he wanted to spend it on, and then in the fine print it said, you must consult iwi with what you've got to spend it on, and they took half for their stuff. He was going to finish off the museum in Invercargill. Christian churches have become woke and PC, history ignorant, all the while thinking they are running with co-governance, they are putting a smile on the face of God. They're not. Churches are supposed to fight against darkness, deceit and trickery, not run with it. I can't get into a Christian church in the whole of New Zealand. You know why? Because I ring them up and they say, hey, you know what, Julian, we're bicultural. This is the church. We're bicultural. And we're running with co-governance. I said, mate, we're not bicultural in New Zealand, we're multicultural. We've got 160 cultures here. What are you talking about? Get out of your spiritual bubble.
You're welcome to come to our house.
Well, you can invite me, but man, the churches have just shut their doors on me.
You come to Destiny Church.
Okay, please make sure that was recorded. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last bit. What was that?
Sunday morning. I'll see you there.
Oh, I should be in Tauranga then. But have you got a Destiny Church in Tauranga?
Yep.
Oh, look at them. We have 10 of them saying, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Okay. Well, let me talk to you about that afterwards because I haven't been able to get in churches. The last thing, I wanted to show you this. Look, that this war is very comprehensive, it's complicated, and there's all sorts of, the iwi elite have become like an animal with 100 heads, and they're into everything. And so look, the laid-back nature of European Kiwis, whose mantra is, she'll be right. Kiwis go, oh, this should be right, mate. Don't worry about it. It's all going to work out. I go, mate, this is not going to work out. This is one of the ones that's not going to work out. This is tragic. This is the worst political disaster that's come to New Zealand since 1840. Until it takes tribal rule, and then the tears will flow in the gutters of our streets. You do not want tribal rule. I'm telling you, it's hell, and it's coming. I was in this seminar in Tauranga. Let me show you this. I was just at this point in Tauranga, and a guy put up his hand at the back. I don't usually have anybody talk, but I thought, oh well. And he said, can I say something? I said, yeah. And he said, my land's just been reclassified. He owns a big block of land in the Kaimai Ranges, between Tauranga and Morrinsville. You have to go over the hill. And he said, I've got a letter here. And he pulled out of his jacket. He said, this letter came from the government saying your land's been reclassified. I said, what excuse did they give you for reclassifying your land? Do you know what they said? No. They said, it's in the flight path of a kiraroo. I am not kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I got that piece of paper. I said, bring it here. I want to have a look at this. And I opened it up, and sure enough, it said, your property is in the flight path of kiraroo. We are reclassifying it. Yes. I reckon they just sit around having a cup of tea thinking, how are we going to get that piece of land? Let's just make up an excuse. So, I want to say this. Who is Stop Co-Governance fighting for in this war? We are fighting for the average Maori and for the 159 other cultures living in New Zealand. Well, who are these people? Look, we've got Indians here, we've got Africans, we've got Chinese, we've got Russians, we've got Czechs, we've got Samoans. I'm fighting for all these people. We've got French people here. Not so much fighting for them. We've got... Oh, I love that part. I was waiting for that. So I love the... You know what? Kiwis have got such a good sense of humor. I love the Tongans. I love the Germans. I love the Croatians. And, you know, we've got the British here. We've got the South Americans. We've got the Koreans. We've got the South Africans. We've got the Italians. We've got the Niueans. We've got the Filipinos. And all the other, you know, 160 in total. Are they all taxpayers? Yes or no? Should they be treated equally? Yes or no? Yes, they should. Let's give them a clap and say, welcome to New Zealand. All right, I'm going to take you through 2 more slides and then we're going to go and have a cup of tea and some sausage rolls. So this is the Tahu leader. This is Tiffany O'Regan, and he said that what was said of him. So Tiffany O'Regan has been known to hint that if Ngāi and other tribes' claims before the Waitangi Tribunal are not met, there is a danger, he said, that Maori activists may resort to violence to achieve their objectives. Is that a statement of war, yes or no? Yes. Yes, it is. I didn't start this war. This war came to me.
He's Irish anyway.
Well, you're going to be IRA, right? So anyway. Then you got this guy, Ken Mair, the leader of the militant Tihahi Kaha group. He said this: we will take back our country by any means. Notice absolutely everything that comes in my slideshow is academically referenced. The page, the publisher, everything. So, the Māori Party has clear goals. Here's Waititi. He says this: it has a 25-year plan. They want self-determination, self-management, and self-governance over all their domains. This is a tribal rebellion. If it was 1860s, the troops would have moved in and just put it down. But no, we just let it go. That's why I'm mobilising. They want a separate Maori parliament with 15 to 17 seats and control over $20 billion of annual self-managed spending. Who's going to pay that money? We are. And then I had a Maori lady who stood up at the back and said, hang on a minute, we're 14% of the population, we're going to pay some of that. And I said, you know when Chris Finlayson set up all the Maori, we were given billions of dollars with payouts? Chris Finlayson was like a maniac with payouts. And when Maori went out and bought fisheries and forests and hotels and supermarkets, and they went and bought, tourist operations and everything, and he allowed them to be set up as charities. How many knew that? You don't have to pay tax. And so the burden for this $20 billion, a billion is 1,000 million, so there's going to be $20,000 million given to Maori every single year, and you're going to pay. And look at this. The Dunedin Hospital was projected to cost $1.4 billion. You could build 14 hospitals every single year, state-of-the-art hospitals for that $20 billion. 14 of them. But Maori say no. It's got to go to us. I say no. It's not going to you, because we're going to stop co-governance.
Yes.
Abolishing full and final treaty settlements. He says we don't want full and final treaty settlements. Of course, everybody loves passive income. Isn't that true? Handing back all conservation land to Maori. Now, the reference was he was interviewed by the Guardian newspaper in England, and that's what he said. Now, Stuart C. Scott, historian, says claiming has become an integral part of the Maori way of life. The thought of the extinction of further claiming rights by final settlements is abhorrent to the race. Maoridom does not want settlement. It wants to nurse its grievances and continue its claiming ad infinitum. Now, the push by tribal leaders for co-governance and partnership, if not stopped, is going to destroy New Zealand. So what is co-governance? Now, I'm going to take you into... Sorry about that. I'm going to take you... We're going to have a break at this point. I'm going to take you into just 5 quick slides on what is co-governance, what does it mean? Because there's a guy called Trimner, somebody Trimner? Yeah, he goes on. Julian Batchelor doesn't have anything in his seminar about co-governance. He's never even been to my seminar, So I'm going to take you through 5 quick slides on what it actually means, practically, what co-governance is and how it's going to affect your life. But before we do that, go and have a cup of tea. There's women's toilets there, men's toilets there, and I don't want you to go home because the next half is the Treaty of Waitangi, and you do not want to miss that. Don't miss that.
The Bible says that we are one people, not a split up. Galatians 15:5 or 5:15 it is. If you must love one another, or we'll end up annihilating each other. That is from the Bible, and that's why when people stray away from the fundamental teachings and principles and ideas of the Bible, the society just starts destroying itself. So we need to be loving each other as one people. I'm going to come back outside now to see what's going on. There was a whole heap of police officers just there getting ready just in case. But like I said, as society strays away from the fundamental principles and teachings of the Bible, it gets worse and worse to such a point that the Holy Spirit ends up kicking in and we come back together as one people. But look, here's what's happening out the front here. We've got the activists, the people that have been educated into liking the idea of this co-governance.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. How's it going?
Hello.
He's got his mask on, that's pretty
nice,
good.
That's a nice phone.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey. Hey. How's it
Where
going?
are you? Oh, gee.
I cannot sleep. I've got a hormonal imbalance.
Yeah. It's about a 50-year cycle is something that's happening at the moment as well. As society strays away from these fundamental teachings of the Bible, it destroys itself. There's a Jesus revolution happening at the moment in America, and it's going to start spreading around as well, the more that they push society out of these principles and teachings. Until we get to a point where we just can't stand it anymore. Then we start loving each other again. Then we come together as one people, accepting each other, forgiving each other for our sins, and start giving again as well, instead of all this separation. This is the typical divide and conquer thing that's going on here at the moment, eh? So look, I'm going to go back inside and have a look.
We're big boys.
They're not. Sal, how you going? We got the Man Up crew here today as well, as you can see by my hat that I was wearing. There's been a heap of people turned up today. So look, I'm going to stop for a break at the moment. I'll put this away for a few minutes. Thanks for watching, and remember that Kiwis are strong warriors and we're not going to stop until we get what we want. We'll be back soon. Watch out for the next part 2.